Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at lists, dictionaries, and tuples. So we're going to go ahead and create a new file, which we're going to call containers, which will make sense after we explain what each term is. So when we look at lists, dictionaries, and tuples, they're all containers. That means different values can be stored in them. So the first one we're going to be looking at is lists. To create a list, we're going to be using square brackets. So how we would do it is first we would input the name of the list. So let's call it name, and we'll have an equal sign and we'll have two square brackets, and inside these square brackets is where we're going to store different values. In Python, unlike other programming languages, lists can have different data types. That means one list can contain a string and a number together. So let's say we want to store different names. Let's say Abel. And when we want to add another element, we're going to have a comma. That means each element is going to be separated by a comma. And let's say Ebenezer. So this is a list in Python which contains two elements, Abel and Ebenezer. We can also save numbers in a list, so let's call it numbers, and we can save the numbers 1, 2, and 3 inside the list. Another thing we can do is have numbers and strings together, so let's just call it combo, and we can have Abel and let's say the numbers 2 and 3. So in Python, you can store different data types in one list. So using the print function, which we learned in our first video, we can print out the different lists. So we're going to say print, and inside the parentheses, we're going to put in the name of the list. Now we can run our code. First, let's clear our terminal. We're going to type in Python 3 followed by containers .py. As you can see, it prints out Abel, Ebenezer. We can also print out the other list. So let's say we wanted to print out combo. We can save and we can run it again, and it prints out Abel, 2, 3. And another thing we can do is use loops. So we can use the for loop, for example, to loop through each element of our list and print it out. So to do that, we're going to use the for keyword followed by the temporary variable, which is going to store each element of our list. So we're going to just call it item in. So we want to iterate through, let's say, the combo list. So we're going to say for item in combo. We want to print item, which is going to be storing each value of our lists. So we're going to save our file and we're going to run it. As you can see, it iterates through the whole list and prints Abel, then 2, then 3. So that is what we can use for loops for. Another thing we can do is access a separate or an individual element from our list. So let's say from our numbers list, we want to access the number 2. In Python, how indexing works is index starts from 0. That means the number here in the numbers list, the number 1 is at position 0, the number 2 is at position 1, and the number 3 is at position 2. So if we wanted to access the number 2, it would be at position 1. So what we would do is, let's say we wanted to print it out. So we're going to have our print statement, and we're going to write the name of our list, and in square brackets we're going to put in the position we want to print. So as we said, 2 is at position 1, so we're going to say numbers, and in square brackets we're going to have 1. Now we can save our file and we can run it, and as you can see, it prints out 2. So that is how you access elements in a list. And there are different type of actions you can do to a list, like adding elements to the list, sorting the list, reversing the list. There are many. So In order to access them, if you're using Visual Studio Code, all you have to do is write the name of your list, let's say numbers, and put in the dot operator. As soon as you put in the dot, you will see a list of different words like reverse, sort, append, extend, remove, and insert. We will be looking at each of them. So let's start with append. What append does is add an element to the end of your list. So let's say we wanted to add the number 4 to the end of the numbers list. So all we have to do is say numbers dot append, and in parentheses we're going to put in the element we want to add, which is 4. So we can save our file and we can print out numbers to see the change. So we're going to go to our terminal and run it. And as you can see, 4 is added to the end of our list. And that is how append works. Now let's write numbers again and let's see another method or another action we can do with lists. Let's see the insert function. So the insert function is when you want to add an element, but you don't want to add it to the end of the list. So you wanted to add it somewhere in the middle of the list. Let's say you wanted to add the number 100 at position 1, which is where 2 is. So we want to add 100 and we want our list to look like 1, 100, 2, 3. So what we would do is in the insert function, first we were going to put in the position where we want 100 to be placed. We want it to be placed in position 1. Remember, indexing starts from 0, so we want it to be positioned at 1. Next, we're going to put in the value we want to put at that position, which is 100. Now we can save our file and we can print numbers and see the change. So we're going to go to our terminal and run it. As you can see, it prints out 1, 100, 2, 3, 4. Next, we're going to be looking at another method, which is going to be extend. Extend means if you want to add another list to the end of your own list. So we already have a list 1, 2, 3, and let's say we wanted to add another list of 300, 400, and 500 at the end. So we're going to extend our numbers list. So we're going to say numbers dot extend, and in parentheses we're going to have another list that we want to add at the end, which is going to be 300, 400, and let's say 25. Now we can save our file and we're going to print numbers so we can see the change, and we're going to save our file and go to the terminal and run it. And as you can see at the last output, it's 1, 100, 2, 3, 4, then the list we extended, which is 300, 400, and 25. Next, we're going to be looking at something you can do to a list. So we're going to say numbers dot sort. So when you want to sort a list, you obviously don't have to give it anything. You just want your list to be sorted. So in the parentheses is going to be empty. So we're going to run numbers.sort, which should sort our list in ascending order. That means from the smallest to the largest. So we're going to print numbers and see if it worked. And we're going to run it. As you can see, it prints 1, 2, 3, 4, 25, 100, 300, and 400. That means it has been sorted. And the last method we're going to see with lists is the reverse method, which just does what it says it does. So it's going to reverse our list. So if we print numbers, it should be in reverse order. So we're going to run it. As you can see, it's in reverse order, starting from 400 to 1. There is one last action with list we can do that we didn't see, which is the remove function, which is used to simply just remove a number. So let's say we wanted to remove the element 400 from our lists. We can just say remove, and we're going to put in 400. And we're going to print numbers. And we're going to run our file. As you can see in the last list, 400 has been removed. So this is all about the basics of lists. Next, we're going to be looking at dictionaries. So in order to create a dictionary, we're going to be using curly braces. But what is a dictionary? A dictionary is a container just like a list, but it contains key value pairs, just like in an actual dictionary. In an actual dictionary, there are keywords and definitions together. So it's a key value pair. So let's say we have a dictionary that's called alpha num, and we're going to set it equal to, as I said, we're going to be using curly braces. And the syntax is, first you put in the key, then you put a colon, then you put the value. So let's say our dictionary is just going to convert numbers from their written form to their number form. So it's going to be 1 is going to be the key, and the value is going to be the number 1. So when we want to add more elements to our dictionary, we're going to use commas. So the second element is going to be 2, and it's going to have the value of 2. And let's just end it at 3, which is going to have a value of 3. At the final element, you don't need to add a comma because you're not going to be adding any more elements. So this is what dictionaries are in Python. So in order to access an element in a dictionary, you're going to be using the keys, which are in this case 1, 2, and 3. So we can print out, let's say if we wanted to access the number 2 here, we're going to use the key 2. So we're going to say alpha num, and in square brackets, we're going to put in the key, which is the word 2. So we can save our file and see if it works. As you can see, it prints out the number 2. So that is how you would access different elements in a dictionary. You can also use a for loop to loop through a dictionary. So let's just see what happens when we do it straightforward by saying for items in alpha num, we want to print items. So we're going to save our file and we're going to run it. It prints out the word form of 1, 2, and 3. That means it's looping through the keys. Let's say we wanted to actually loop through the values. So what we need to do is say for items in alpha num dot. So we're going to be using one of those methods that we saw in lists, but in this case we're going to use keys. So what this is going to do is it's going to get us a list of the keys of our dictionary. So once we get the list of our keys, we can use those to access the actual values. So what we are going to do is print out alpha num, and in square brackets we're going to put in the items we just got. That means the items we just got from the list of keys. So this should print out the different values in our dictionary. So we can run it, and as you can see, it prints out the values. So this is just the basics of dictionaries. So we're going to look at the final container, which we'll be seeing in this video, which is a tuple. A tuple is like a list, but in this case, you can't change the individual elements of that list. So let's say what we didn't mention in the previous explanation is that you can change each element of a list. So let's say we go to the numbers list, and let's say we want to change the first element, which is at position 0. So we can just say equal to, and let's say we want it to be A. So now we can just save, we can print out numbers, and now we can save our file and we can run it. And as you can see, 1 has been replaced by A. That means lists are mutable. That means you can change each element of your list. But when it comes to tuples, you can't do that. That means once you set a tuple, that means you cannot change its elements. To create a tuple, we're going to be using normal brackets. So it's going to be, let's say we wanted to represent coordinates. So it's going to be coordinates, and we're going to set it equal to 2, 3. So this is simply a tuple. That means 2 and 3 cannot be changed. So let's just try to change it. So we're going to say coordinates, and let's say we wanted to change the first coordinate, and let's set it equal to 10. Now we're going to save our file and we're going to run it. As you can see, we get an error which says tuple does not support item assignment. This also has its own application. Each container we saw have their own application, which we will be seeing in future projects. So this is all you need to know about the basics of containers, such as lists, dictionaries, and tuples in Python. Thank you for watching this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more daily programming videos.